Welcome students to factoring by grouping. Sometimes you can factor a polynomial by grouping its terms into two sets, then factoring out the GCF, which is the greatest common factor, from both sets. So, as we did last time, we're just going to jump into an example. So example 1, we want to factor by grouping. Now this method does not always work. Sometimes one of the other methods is going to be better, but when this one does work, it's pretty convenient. So I have x to the third power plus 4x squared plus 6x plus 24. Now notice that I have x to the third power, which is x times x times x. And then 4x squared is 4 times x times x. And those both have two x's being multiplied in them. So they have a common factor there, x squared. And these, so 6x is 6 times x, and 24 is 6 times 4. And they both have a times 6 in them. So those are the common factors that I'm talking about. So we're going to be factoring out an x squared from these two and a 6 from those two. So first, group the terms into two sets that have a common factor. So I'm going to write it out. I'm going to take my other color pens and group them with parentheses, just so we can see. We're grouping these two, and we're grouping those two. And then we're going to factor out the GCF from both groups. So here I was going to be able to factor out two x's. So x squared. And then once I factor out an x squared from x to the third, I've got an x left. So I'm going to write x here. Plus, and then after I factor out this x squared from 4x squared, I still have a 4 that's left. So right now I have x squared times x plus 4. And then out of these two, I'm going to go ahead and factor out that 6. And then when I factor a 6 out of 6x, then x is left. And then when I factor a 6 out of 24, then there's still a 4 left. Now, notice what we got here. These are both the same. That's what you want. You want those to be the same. If those are the same, then this method is going to work. And if not, then you just have to use one of the other methods. No big deal. So this means that x plus 4 is the common factor. So if I set up my multiplication, just like so, one of my factors is going to be x plus 4. And now I need the other one, which is going to be right here. So for the other one, notice I'm taking x plus 4 times x squared. And that's how I get x to the third and 4x squared, just like that. And then notice I'm taking x plus 4 times 6, so this must be plus 6. And then that's how I get 6x plus 24. So notice I managed to get my original again. X to the third power plus 4x squared plus 6x plus 24. And so I have my factors, x plus 4 times x squared plus 6. So let me write that down. And those are my factors. And then I'm done. I factored it. So let's try another one. Example 1 again. Look at that. I didn't even notice that. So let's try the next one. So what can I group these into? Well, I can put these together, and I can put these together. because x to the third power, well, that's really x times x times x. And x, or 9x squared, is 9 times x times x. So my common factor here is x squared. So let's go ahead and do that. Let me factor an x squared out of this. Oops, x squared. Let me fix that. There. Okay, so when I factor an x squared out of x to the third, I still have an x left. And when I factor x squared out of 9x squared, I still have a 9. So that part's done. Now let's do the second part. Now notice here, this is negative 2 times x, and this is negative 2 times 9. So the factor they have in common is negative 2. So I'm going to factor a negative 2 out of those terms. So when I factor a negative 2 out of negative 2x, then I still have an x. And when I factor negative 2 out of negative 18, I still have a 9. And notice those are the same, which is just what we wanted, which means my factors are x plus 9 and x squared minus 2. And you may want to finish checking. That's x to the third, that's 9x squared, that's negative 2x, and that's negative 18, which is what we had to begin with. And notice there's no like terms to combine here, so you don't have to worry about that. So my factors are x plus 9 times x squared minus 2. Bam. Okay, so I'm going to do 3 with you, and then I want you guys to try 2 and 4 yourselves. So number 3. So we're going to group, let's see. So 4x squared is 4 times x times x. 20x is, well, let's factor the 20. 20 is 4 times 5 times x. And then negative 3xy is negative 3 times x times y. And negative 15y is negative 3 times 5 times y. So this one's a little bit harder just because there's a little bit more factoring that you have to do. But that's okay. So look at the first two. The first two both have a 4 and an x in common. So their common factor is 4x. So let's go ahead and factor that out. So when I factor 4x out of 4x squared, I still have an x left. And when I factor 4x out of 4 times 5 times x, I still have a 5. Okay, looking at the next one. So out of negative 3xy and negative 15y, they both have a negative 3 and a y as factors. So if I factor a negative 3y out of the second two terms, then I'm going to end up with an x and a 5, which, hey, is what I wanted to get because I want them both to be the same. So that means I got my factors. So x plus 5 is one of my factors. And my other one is 4x minus 3y, because that will give me 4x times x is 4x squared, then 20x, negative 3xy, and negative 15y, which matches what I started with. So my factors are x plus 5, and 4x minus 3y. Done. So I'm going to pause this so that you can try 2 and 4 and then come back to check your work. All right, welcome back. So here's example 2. You should have gotten x minus 5 times x squared plus 3. And then go ahead and pause that and check your work. And then here's number 4. So you should have gotten x minus 2 times 3x squared plus 15. And go ahead and check your work.